Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you to the people who voted. Today we're going to be talking about Yummy Azamina. Now there might be people thinking, why now? Why are we talking about Yummy now? Post ban list, a lot of people initially thought, that's the end of Yummy. Yummy's dead, it's over. We lost Herald, Snatchy went to 1, and for many, this represented the end of Yummy as a competitive deck. Trif has been very, very vocal about the fact that Herald was in fact a crutch, and I do think there's some truth to that. Not because Herald is a bad card, it's bonkers, right? Yumi Mitsurugi was so overwhelmingly powerful and dominated the meta, and rightly so. Stupid deck, stupid card. But where the truth in that comes is that it did stifle innovation, the creativity and people cooking with the deck. It just wasn't really there because everybody defaulted to Yumi Mitsurugi because of how ridiculously powerful it was. Now that this is gone and this is a 1, we're seeing some real innovation come through with the Yumi strategy. Kamal just won the YCS with Yumi Radiant Tri-Brigade, for goodness sake, right? And this is a deck that's supposed to be dead post this new ban list. We're seeing some really good stuff with Yumi at the minute. And because of that, that's why I now decided to maybe, show Yumi a little bit of love on the channel, because previously to now, it felt like it was pointless. What am I going to do? Make yet another, Yumi Mitsurugi video, or make a Yumi video, but it's not Yumi Mitsurugi, which then makes it pointless because, you just, why would you not be playing Yumi Mitsurugi, right? But now, I think it's a much better and more interesting time to be making videos about Yumi, basically. So let me show you why I think Yumi Azamina has its merits and might actually be a thing. Before we do, there's just one quick thing I need to do. No, I'm joking, that's a quarter century secret rare. You're out of your mind. Now, the basic principles of Yumi still apply to Yumi Azamina. Any Yumi name is full combo. So if we're playing the map, right, we've now got 15 one-card starters that lead to an absolutely bonkers board. Because the Yumi names can special summon themselves as well, it's a very, very difficult deck to hand trap. It's a very, very difficult deck to stop from reaching its end board. It's a very consistent deck as well. What we lost with Herald is the omni-negates, of course. But now we're going to instead end on 3 omni-negates instead of the 1. Let me show you how. As always, Dark Magician represents our blanks. Basically, any cards we draw will also be a Dark Magician to show that this really is a true 1-card combo. It could be Marshmallow, but honestly, it could be any Yumi name. You will still get to the same end board. Any Yumi name does what I'm about to show you. So you'd start by normaling or special summoning Marshmallow. May as well special summon it, right? We link it off for a copy of Snatchy. There he is. Snatchy effect to get the minion. Minion effect to bring back the Marshmallow. We synchro summon, because of course Snatchy is a tuner, or treated as one. And we special summon Cupsy. Now if we started with Marshmallow, you want to be grabbing a copy of Cupsy, and you want to be grabbing a copy of Cookie. The reason we do this is because Cookie is a disruption during their turn. When summoned back from the graveyard, Cupsy, of course, getting us a copy of Surprise. Special summon Cupsy. Oh, we had to discard, of course. We discard a blank. Cupsy grabs Surprise. Special summon Cookie. And now we're going to link away one of the yummy names, doesn't really matter which, for a copy of Linkaribo. And we synchro again. Synchro 2. And we get a copy of Lollipo. Lollipo will get the cookie and the cupsy. Doesn't really matter which, again, to be honest. Now, this is where it will start to deviate, because for now, you're probably thinking, this is just yummy, right? Where's the difference? And the difference is this guy, right? The Star Ham. You may have heard of Master Ham, complete waster. This guy, the Star Ham, is absolutely appropriately named. Let me show you why. We can synchro 3, the special summon this guy, who has an effect. We can discard a card, and then special summon one of the monsters we just used for the synchro summon, and that will be Lollipo. Now, the reason we're bringing back Lollipo is because we've now got 3, 2, 1 to make 6. And we're going to get a copy of Reselia of the White Forest. On summon trigger effect, we can send the field spell. And with that, we search for a copy of LZ Azamina. Now I'm just going to pause briefly here. If Yumi could bridge into White Forest and Azamina, that alone doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? The reason this in particular is so strong is because we're about to go and do a load of Azamina stuff, right? But notice, we've still got Cupsy on field. We've still got Yummy Surprise in hand. So we've not bridged into this new engine at the cost of all of our resources from the Cupsy side of the deck. We still have access to the Cupsy interactions, sorry, the Yummy interactions, right? And we're now about to add a whole new layer of interactions to our board, but we still have the Yummy interactions, don't we? So we special summon LZ. 6 plus 2 is 8. Quick maths. Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, or Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, depending on what it is you want to play around. I think realistically by now, they've already had an Ash checkpoint. They've already had a Ghost Spell checkpoint. So the way you order these chain links probably isn't too important anymore, realistically. So LZ Azamina grabs a copy of Deception. And then Dia Bell adds a spell card back. Now the only spell card in our deck, in the graveyard, sorry, at the minute, is the Minion, which we'll add back just for hand advantage. But if you weren't discarding Dark Magicians, maybe instead you've discarded a spell as part of your combo route that you can then be grabbing back with Dia Bell, of course. Now, we'll activate Deception. And what we're going to do is we're going to activate Yummy Surprise to bring back the Marshmallow. Trigger effect of Marshmallow, adding back the Surprise. Deception, sending the Marshmallow to get a copy of Hallowed Azamina. Now it's worth me pointing out, I'm showing you the super greedy version of this combo. You can tone it down as much as you feel you need to, right? I'm showing you the full greedy version where we're confident our opponent isn't on the Biru. Hallowed Azamina, sending Deception. Now if we weren't being greedy, we'd go straight for the Sylvia here, but we are being greedy, so we're going to go for the Brasiliaga. On summon trigger effect, to grab a copy of Wanted. We'll activate Wanted to get a copy of the Witch. And we're going to banish Wanted to put Deception to the bottom of the deck and get ourselves a draw, another blank. Now, even though we've discarded cards, you can see that our hand is still very healthy, right? So from here, what we would do, we would special summon Diabell Star, and we're going to discard a blank because we're being greedy, right? We're being greedy. And we're going to get a trap that you might have seen before if you've been to the channel, previous videos. Sinful Spoils of Slumber. That was a right mouthful. Morion. This Book of Moons, a special summoned monster. Not only that, once it's been sent to the graveyard, as long as you control an illusion monster, level 5 or higher, you can reset it. So it's an interruption as well as being good for card economy. So we set this with the effect of Diabell Star, and then we banish Diabell Star, going into a copy of the Dark Magician of Destruction. On sub a trigger effect, Gaze of Timaeus. And now, what I like to do, again, depends if we're trying to be greedy or not, and we are. If we're trying to be greedy, we'd go into IP Masquerena. If we're trying to be less greedy, we'd go straight into the Little Knight. But for the purposes of the video, we know our opponent isn't on nib, because they told us, very nice of them, and we're going to go for the IP. Now what we can do, put Restiliago back into the extra deck in order to add back the Hallowed Azamina, activate Hallowed Azamina, sending Sinful Spoils of Slumber, Morion, to the graveyard. And now we summon the Ilia Sylvia. Because we control a level 5 or higher illusion monster, we can reset this, so it's an additional free interaction, which has a lot of applications in the current meta, right? Particularly against Vanquished Soul, K9, any kind of K9 variant, so definitely worthwhile. And then, finally, we can set Gaze of Timaeus, we can set Yummy Surprise, and we can pass turn. We can thank our opponents for watching our, PowerPoint presentation on Yu-Gi-Oh! And we pass turn. So if we look at this board though, we have a lot. Like we genuinely have a lot. You might have seen the comment about 8 interactions. So let's go through them one at a time. So we've got Ilia Sylvia, that's 1. Omni-negate. Diabell is either going to get you a copy of Zalen, which is another negate, or a copy of Silvera to Book of Moon their field. She can only summon one of those, obviously, so we're only going to count one of them. Let's say it was Zalen. That's 2 interactions. Cupsy sends itself to the graveyard. And I mentioned earlier, we specifically want to be getting Cookie. Special summons Cookie, special summons Cupsy with its effect. I'm actually on 2 Surprise in this current deck list. I'm quite liking 2 Surprise. So we get another copy of Surprise for follow-up. Cookie pops one of their cards. So that's 3 interactions so far. We're going to go IP Masquerena. SP Little Knight. So that's 4 interactions, 5 interactions. Obviously on summon banish, and then an additional banish when they activate an effect. So that's 5 interactions. Gaze of Timaeus to bring out the Dragoon by putting this chap back into the extra deck. 6 interactions. 7 interactions. Book of Moon, one of their monsters. And then finally, Yummy Surprise for 8 interactions. Now that could be return these 2 back to the hand to bounce 2. Also, it could be revive Snatchy, use Snatchy to synchro into our final Yummy name, to Book of Moon. Not only that, you could say we've got 9 interactions, to be honest, because we've got Linkaribo in the graveyard, so we can special summon Linkaribo to stop them attacking over one of our monsters. Maybe they're trying to attack over our Sylvia earlier on in their turn, bring back Linkaribo to stop them. We can call that 9 interactions. Not only that, if we didn't search for Yummy Surprise, and instead we decided to draw a card, right, we draw a blank. This deck can fit a ton of non-engine. So these won't be, Dark Magicians in a real turn. Maybe it's an Ash, maybe it's a Ghost Spell. So what we can get to, quite realistically, without trying to clickbait or make it sound like it's more than it is, any Yummy name can quite comfortably be 10 plus interactions, including 3 negates, just from any Yummy name, right? And for going first, I think this is, let's face it, I think this is more than enough to win. Dark Ruler does beat this board, but nobody's playing Dark Ruler at the minute. So really, I think the main threats to this type of board aren't really in the meta. Nobody's on Sphere mode. I think Lava Golem, okay, I'll give you that. Some people are on Lava Golem. Nobody's on Dark Ruler. And so we've got 15 one-card starters, 15 opportunities to get to this board from any one single card, which I think is, kind of crazy, to be honest. What's interesting about this as well is that we're making more or less the White Forest end board. We don't have the Vengeance, right? But we're making a healthy chunk of the White Forest end board, as well as the Yummy end board at the same time. And we're not having to fill our deck full of bricks or full of garnets. The only actual garnet in the entire deck, well, there's 2 really. You've got the Gaze of Timaeus, you've got Hallowed Azamina. They're your only garnets. Deception and Wanted and Diabellstar, they're not garnets, they're not bricks, because you can do things with them. I'm going to show you a different line, which is, if we start with Azamina, how can we get into Yummy? I'm going to show you 2 ways of doing this. One, I think, is the better of the 2, right? It's probably the more competitively viable way of doing things. The other, I will also show you as well, just because, well, it's quite cool, to be honest. And it does actually utilise the Dark Magician engine. So, it's worth pointing out, it doesn't matter which of these you start with. None of these cards are bricks. Admittedly, these are garnets. You don't want to be drawing. But we are playing 15 one-card starters. 16, 17, 18 one-card starters, right? If we add additional copies of any of these cards, we're massively boosting our consistency. So I don't think 2 garnets is the end of the world, to be honest. But let's say we start with the Witch, just because I like the alt artwork. I only have 1, sad times. So we special summon the Witch, sending a blank to the graveyard, gets us a copy of Deception. We flip it over, so that D mod becomes live, and we banish the Witch to bring out Dark Magician of Destruction. On summon trigger effect, you'd add Gaze of Timaeus to your hand. Deception sends D mod, adding Hallowed Azamina, and then you go Hallowed Azamina, sending Deception to special summon Luciliago. On summon trigger effect to grab the trap. Back to your deck to get Hallowed Azamina back. Hallowed Azamina again, sending Morian to the graveyard. Special summoning Sylvia. And of course, we get this back. Now we've got Gaze of Timaeus. We've already got the omni-negates, so unless we're worried about Nib and Imperm combined, We can save this for their turn. If you are worried about that, put Dmod back. Bring out a copy of Dragoon. And now we've got 2 omni-negates. And at this point, we have to bear in mind, these wouldn't be Dark Magicians if this was a real duel, right? And because we're maxing out on the Yummy cards, realistically, we're definitely drawing at least 1 Yummy name, and we haven't normal summoned yet. So if you do open a piece of the Azamina engine, you do this, get yourself 2 omni-negates without normal summoning, without locking yourself in any kind of way. Normal summon Cupsy, response, and they'll probably go to game 2, let's face it. This is what I think is the most competitive way of starting with the Azamina engine, rather than starting with Yummy and bridging into Azamina. Let me show you what is probably a cooler way, right? Just while we're here, for the sake of being thorough, I'll show you what is probably a cooler way, but I don't think it's quite as competitive, right? Let me show you. So this is way number 2, let's call it. I'll probably think of something better. No, we're going to stick with way number 2. So this guarantees a direct bridge into the Yummy side of things at the cost of adding more garnets to your deck. So I don't realistically think this is the way, right? But I do want to show you it because it is cool, so why not? We special summon Diabellstar, pitch in a blank, and we get, of course, a copy of Deception. We activate Deception, and then we pitch Diabellstar, banish rather, to get a copy of Dark Magician of Destruction. On summon trigger effect of Dark Magician of Destruction, to grab a copy of Magician's Rod. Now this is why I'm not quite as keen on this, because we're not getting the Gaze of Timaeus when we go down this route. We are, however, still getting an omni-negate, so it's not all bad news, right? Use Deception on Dmod to get Herald Azamina. Activate Herald Azamina, sending Deception. And then what we'll do is we'll just pretend we went through the whole line that I've showed you in order to get Ilya Sylvia plus the trap. It's free real estate, why not? Now we still haven't normal summoned, have we? So what you'd do is you'd activate, or normal summon rather, Magician's Rod, and you get yourself a copy of Soul Servant. Activate Soul Servant, stacking Magician's Souls to the top of your deck, and then we banish Soul Servant because we have Dark Magician in the graveyard. Not this guy, this guy. He's Dark Magician while he's in the graveyard, so we get to draw the Magician's Souls we just put on top of our deck, activate the effect in hand, sending an Illusion of Chaos to the graveyard to special summon Magician's Souls. The reason he's in the deck is because we might need to manipulate our deck if we draw the wrong card, basically, or we need to put a card back into the deck. We also need something to send for Magician's Souls that isn't a complete brick. And because he can manipulate your hand, like we talked about, he's not actually a bad draw, to be honest. Now what you'd do, you'd link off Magician's Rod for Artemis, and then we've got a link 1 and a level 1, which we can use under the protection of an omni-negate to synchro summon Cupsy. On summon trigger effect, we get Cookie, we get Cupsy, pitch in a blank, and I won't carry on from here because obviously I think we're all well aware at this point of your basic Yummy line, right? I showed you part of it earlier. But this is a way where we can start with Azamina, still get an omni-negate, right? It's only 1 instead of 2, but then start comboing into Yummy after starting with the Azamina side of things. I'll be honest, I'm not sure this is worth the garnets it adds to the deck, but it's still cool though, so I wanted to show you anyway. So let's talk deck list / going second. I've showed you how With any one Yummy name, we're putting up 8, potentially even 10 interruptions from any one single Yummy name. Yummy as a deck is difficult to hand trap as well. So very often, these kinds of, people call them like Twitter combos, don't they? Where your opponent has gone to the toilet mid-match and you just get to do whatever. With Yummy, it's very realistic you will get to the board I've just showed you, because the fair, quote-unquote, one-for-one hand traps are so inefficient against Yummy. It's really, really difficult to hand trap this deck. So as long as you're not getting hit with a Perulia or a Fuelos, you're making a all but unbeatable board, aren't you? Let's face it. Going second, though. Going second, I think, is so important. It doesn't get a lot of talk in YouTube videos either, from what I've noticed. It's all about, like, look what this deck can do going first. And I do think it's important to know how to FTK people if you get to go first and you're allowed to do your combo. That combo better be winning the game, right? Losing the dice roll, but still winning game 1, that's how you're going a long tournament run, right? It can't just be 50% of your games you're going to lose the dice roll, you're going to automatically lose game 1. Your deck needs to be able to take games after losing the dice roll. It needs to be able to take game 1s in particular, specifically, right? After losing the dice roll. So if we look at this list, we've got 3 of every Yummy name, plus 3 map, and then we've got Surprise, and we've got Minion. That takes us up to 17 cards. The Azamina portion of the deck, Deception, Wanted, Dear Bellstar, and then we've got Hallowed Azamina, Gaze of Timaeus, Sinful Spoils of Slumber. Some people will cut this, right? That's fine. I quite like it for the reasons we've gone into. You definitely side it out going second. I'll tell you that, right? And of course, LZ Azamina. Now, these two, you really don't want to draw. Drawing this isn't great, but you can discard it and then reset it later, so, not the end of the world. LZ Azamina, she can special summon herself for free from hand, turn it into an SP Little Knight. If you get to Hallowed Azamina later in the combo, you can put this back into your deck to add this back into your hand. Not ideal, but, it's workable. You can play around it, right? This gets us to 24 cards in total, which is leaving 16 slots for hand traps. 16 slots for hand traps / non-engine. I think Forbidden Droplet is a really good card at the minute, I'll be honest. Not just as a board breaker, but also in terms of making sure your cards actually get to resolve. So let's say we're running 3 Forbidden Droplets in the main. You've still then got room for 13 hand traps. If we're running 2 droplets in the main, we've got room for 14 hand traps. There's a world, though, where we push the deck count up to 42. And with that, you can do one of 2 things. Add an extra Wanted, add an extra Witch, right? Then we're at 42. Our deck's even more consistent again. We've already got 18 starters. Or we can go 24 engine, 18 non-engine in the main as well. Now, I need to do a little bit more testing before I kind of write those numbers into a stone tablet, right? But because the deck's so consistent, and because any one Yummy name does so much, and we've got 15, right? We've got 15 Yummy names. I think 18 non-engine is actually quite playable. It's fine. Post side, there's even a world. Let's say we're running, we're at 42, right? We're taking this out. Let's face it, that's going. Maybe we're taking out, one of the maps, 3 of the maps, whatever. The point I'm making is that there's a world where post side, we're looking at 20 non-engine when we're going second. And you could push that number up as well if you wanted to. You could take out the whole entire Azamina side of things if you wanted to, right? You could keep the map. Where is it? Oh, yep, still there. So you could keep the map, keep all of the Yummy elements, and then put in an additional, what's this, 7? An additional 7 cards of non-engine, of board breakers, because we've still got 15 one-card starters. And so I think where this deck is strong for going second isn't necessarily in the Yummy engine itself. You know, historically not a great engine for going second, let's face it. But we're running 16 non-engine in the main, or 18 non-engine in the main, if we're running a 42 card list. And then going second, I mean, pick a number, to be honest. We can be running absolutely silly amounts of non-engine and board breakers for going second. And I think that's how this deck goes second, to be honest. Because if you're hitting people with, you know, a mixture of unfair hand traps, right, plus the board breakers, then I think you've got a really good chance of being able to break boards. And so there's no super secret tech I can show you with Yummy. You know, here's how you beat any board with Yummy. Doesn't exist. But you can build your deck in a way where you've got a really, really good chance of just completely crippling your opponent with non-engine going second. Let me show you the extra deck as well, before I forget. There's 16 cards in here. I'll explain why in a second though. Don't go calling the judge on me. So, we've got the cookie, the lollipop, the cupsy, nice and standard. We've got the snatchy, right? Nice and straightforward. We've got the Sylvia, the Resiliago, the Dragoon, and the D-Mod. All make sense. We've got the Resilia, the Diabell. We'll come back to those two. The Starham is the extender. And then for the links, we've got IP Masquerina, Linkaribo, and Little Knight. This technically is a flex spot because you could just go straight into Little Knight if you didn't want to do IP into Little Knight. So this is the only flex spot. Everything else in this extra deck is a must play. So this is our only card that you can change, to be honest. Going back to these two, and this is why it's 15 and 16, you've only got room for one of these. So whichever one of these is in your deck, the other one's in the side. Zelen is for when you go in first, right? Because it's a negate. And then Silvera is for when you go in second, because it's going to Book of Moon the whole entire field. So whichever one of these is in your main, whichever one of these is in your extra deck, the other's in the side. And that's personal preference, to be honest. Anyway, that's the extra deck. Oh, quickly, if you do want to include the Dark Magician stuff, you'd have to take out the IP for a copy of Artemis. Anyway, that's the video. Am I cooking or am I coping? Let me know. I'll be honest, I think this is really good, right? It's a super consistent, difficult to hand trap deck that ends on a stupid amount of interactions, including multiple negates, right? Because why not? Not only that, we have room for a ton of non-engine as well. So even if we lose the dice roll, we've got so much space for non-engine that we still might snatch a win, pun not intended, game one after losing the dice roll, which I think is so important in your longer tournament runs these days. You can't just be auto-scooping if you lose the dice roll. And let's face it, it can feel like that a lot of the times. So a deck like this, hyper-consistent, unbreakable boards, but still having the opportunity to play loads and loads of non-engine for when you go in second, I think it has its merits. I won't lie. What do you think, though? Let me know in the comments. Am I cooking? Am I coping? Right? Let me know. Love to hear your feedback. Thanks for watching.